Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of Learn with Graveloholic. My name is Marcus, and I will be talking to Jonas, aka the Nordic Trailblazer, or even the Gravel Viking. And here are some of the things that we're going to talk about today.
Yes, you don't think I look like a Viking? No.
Who does?
Uh, yeah, well, maybe you have the beard, so that's probably why I use that nickname, even though I know there are people looking and potentially also are more Viking-like than I am. I never saw myself as somebody who would like to go to the US because I thought it was too mainstream. Maybe I need a tactical coach. I don't know. No, I don't know. Uh, I when line up, I just get super excited.
So, yeah, Jonas, he will help us to explain where the whole Viking thing comes from and what it means for him. It's very, very interesting. So, stay tuned, and here is the full interview. Enjoy. Hello, Jonas. How are you today?
Hey, yeah, thank you, Marcus. Thank you for having me. I think I would say I'm pretty all right, but we had the race down in Girona this weekend. Came home yesterday in the evening, so jet lag would be the wrong word, but I'm still a little bit, trying to settle in and going back to the winter in Norway.
Yeah, that's we need to talk about that. But first and foremost, I think I want to say congratulations, right? You just got married, as I understood it, and you went on your honeymoon, which was maybe not the best way to prepare for the race this weekend, but nonetheless, tell me where did you guys go for the honeymoon? It looked awesome.
Yeah, I mean, we tried to find a date that would work, as me for me as a rider, but also for my wife. And we thought winter wedding would be a good way to do it. I mean, maybe it would be easier if it was in December, because then you would have a little bit more time before the season. But yeah, I mean, December and Christmas time is always busy for not only for us but for guests as well. So yeah, end of January would be a good time. I mean, we had a great wedding up in the mountains in Norway, and then we went on a honeymoon to Mexico to the beach. Also really nice. Really warm, good, relaxing vacation. But yeah, I didn't bring my bike. I mean, my wife is not a rider herself. She definitely support me, but I think it would be maybe the wrong way to start our marriage if I was, on a training camp. So it was not. I planned to have a couple weeks without too much riding, but she got actually food poisoned really early in the honeymoon, which was
Oh no.
yeah, really bad start to the vacation. But it gave me a little bit more time to work out in the gym at the resort. So I did have time to move a little bit, but going from, I think also the traveling, coming going from the other side of the world and back to Europe, and then I mean first Norway and then Spain, made the preparation for Sandoval quite challenging. But yeah, it's fun to be part of the community. So that's my goal. That was why I wanted to go to Spain, not necessarily to race, or at least not for results, but just being part of it.
Yeah, cool. We will speak more about that in a little bit. But just rewind a little bit now, your history. I stalked you on Pro Cycling Stats the other day, and maybe we should just start with that as well. Maybe we don't know each other that well, right? We've been following each other on Instagram for quite some time. I don't remember how long now, and we did bump into each other last summer as well on Gravel and Grind in Halmstad, which was awesome. Uh, but yeah, in general, we don't know each other. So I was like, who is this Jonas guy? I need to really figure out who he is and what he's been up to. And yeah, first and foremost, it's very nice to see that you're like 10 years younger than me. So you have the future ahead of you, I assume. So that's awesome. But hey, your cycling career, you've been at it for quite some time, huh? That's, I think, first, what was it? 2012 was the first entry in Pro Cycling Stats or something?
Yeah, that might be right. I mean, I started late for a rider. Like I guess there's many people starting late. I don't know when you started, Marcus. Um, when did you
I,
start?
I'm just I'm just a baby. I just started cycling like 4 or 5 years ago. So
Exactly. But I started, I always wanted to be an athlete, and first it was all about football or soccer, and eventually I got into cycling through, getting inspired on the TV. But at my first race, I think I was like 17 years old and starting with a junior. So, I guess I started a little bit late for somebody who wanted to really, become a pro. But it was a great start with the local club, and it eventually it graduated to a UCI team. So that was 2012. No, sorry, yeah, 12. 12 was the first year. It was a UCI team, and I've been around in different teams since then, mostly UCI or national elite level. Uh, but yeah, I eventually I realized, I tried to be a pro rider and be the best I could, but I also really enjoyed so yeah, I started going to different UCI teams, and eventually I realized that what I did love about cycling wasn't only about racing, even though I always like to be competitive, more for myself than beating others. But I like to be in good shape. But I also love the traveling part. The experiences, going around, meeting people, new places. So I guess in 2014, I had a chance to go to a UCI team in China. So I stayed
Oh, yeah,
in.
I was gonna ask you about that because I saw in pro cycling there was like 1 year that was basically only Chinese races.
Yeah, I mean,
That
I
that's
raced a
that's
little bit
awesome.
locally. Yeah, I raced locally in Norway, and a little bit in Europe before I went down or over to China. But it was really a fun experience. It was a
Mhm.
UCI team. It had several European riders, so I was not only with Chinese speaking people. But it was an amazing adventure, and I really enjoyed it. I'm also, I was ready to move on the next year. It wasn't like I wanted to move to China, but I really liked I liked the experiences there, and I've been over to China 5 times for racing. Um, so yeah, definitely, I started falling in love with the adventures of riding as well.
Cool. I just need to come back to what you mentioned earlier that you got inspired by watching cycling, or was there any specific like? I mean, cycling is a little bit different if you compare it to football, right? Because you might have one team that you're rooting for, but in cycling, my perception is that people are more sort of maybe following one rider, and then if they switch team, they actually follow that person rather than a specific team or so. But how was it with you? Like, what was it that inspired you? Was it a specific race, like Tour de France, or was it a special rider, or where did that inspiration come from that sort of triggered you starting to cycle?
It's a good question. I haven't thought about, one specific idol or something, but first off, I just enjoyed watching the tour since it was maybe the only race they broadcasted in Norway at the time.
Hmm.
Maybe there were a few more, but the Tour de France was a popular one. And we did have some good Norwegian riders that actually I think had an impact on me, but I don't know, I always liked a little bit underdogs. And I do remember some of the Ausgate riders. They were one of the teams with maybe the most passion, or at least it was all these orange kits, all the fans. I get really inspired by them and some of the riders, Samuel Sanchez and some of these guys. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I also understood that it was a challenging time when I started watching the end of the beginning of the 2000s, when it was a lot of drugs, and I do
Yeah.
remember one of the years I was really a big fan of cycling. I really wanted to see the whole tour, and then 1 week before, then you had the Operation Puerto, where I think at least one third um, of the peloton was thrown out of the race. So
Mm.
I don't think I had specifically one rider or one team that I really rooted
Yeah.
for, except I did like the Euskadi.
Cool. But then, I mean, choosing such a sport in Norway, right? I'm from Sweden, and I also lived in the southern parts of Sweden. So I mean, there's quite a difference, actually, sort of is it longitude in that direction? I don't now. My geographic memory knowledge maybe is not the best right now, but nonetheless. So I live in the southern part of Sweden, and I mean it's challenging to have a season long enough to be able to cycle and to do proper training. But you guys from Norway, it's like seriously, how can you choose such a sport? Yeah, I mean, I understand why endurance sports like Nordic skiing and stuff like that is really big in Norway, but cycling, and you, as you said, you have Norway has produced some really big names and been quite successful as well. Why do you think that is, and how is that even possible in Norway?
Oh yeah, it's a good question. I think for first of all, we have a long tradition of endurance sports, especially cross country skiing, also skating on the ice. So I
Mm,
think a lot of people in Norway they naturally like to be active and also for a little bit longer time. Not only like um, a lot of sports is very explosive. I think the Norwegian nature is more. Endurance directed, so people like like the back to the Vikings, they always went on all these long travels across the Atlantic or other places. They really, I think we maybe are quite a patient people potentially, so maybe that's has something to do with it. So it's definitely a culture for endurance sports. And then I don't want to compare too much to other countries, but I do think Norwegians do have a good work ethics also when it comes to sport. So we are not the people that are skipping workouts or going too much on the field. We are very structured people, and I do think a lot of that has to well is contributing to that we have some really strong riders, even though we are a small country.
mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, I can see that. I can definitely see that. It's interesting. I mean, it's we shouldn't sit here to compare too much, as you said, countries back and forth. But it is interesting. The culture do difference, and there are these sort of prerequisites. And nonetheless, despite the Norway being such a cold country and the cycling season is fairly short, it's still very a big sport. I mean, you also Tour of Norway is a huge race by now as well, right? These big names coming, so it's really really cool. But
Yeah,
you mentioned
definitely.
one thing. You mentioned one thing with Vikings earlier, and one of your taglines. Now we need to talk about your name or your kind of name, aka Nordic Trailblazer. But it also says Gravel Viking on your Instagram, right? So tell me, where is this coming from, the Nordic Trailblazer, and how was it born? And what does it mean to you?
Yes, you don't think I look like a Viking? No.
Who does?
Uh, yeah, well, maybe you have the beard, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess I don't look like a Viking, but I do have some. I feel like the Vikings, they were not only the warriors, even though that was a big part of what they're known for. They were also travelers. They
Mm,
did enjoy going for adventures, going all around the world. There's a lot of trace back to the Vikings being the first in America, also all around the northern parts of the world. But I do think they potentially were also down in Europe and maybe in Africa. But yeah, or anyway, so they liked to travel. They were adventurous and they were hardworking people and not afraid of challenges. And I think that's something I resonate with. I do think, and I look at myself like somebody who are not too afraid to try to go new places, to be adventurous and work hard. So I guess that's kind of why I wanted to use that, um, yeah, the Viking as something I can trying to be associated with, and also because I do race, quite a lot of places in the world, in the U.S., Europe, in Asia, as we talked about. So it's just nice to kind of have your roots with you when you travel. So that's probably why I use that nickname, even though I know there are people looking and potentially also are more Viking-like than I am. Um, and then we thought about how can we separate ourselves from just being a regular rider. Um, and when I say we, it's me and a friend that we've been working on my website since 2013, and we have a lot of fun together, going to some races. He's a good photographer as well, and we have this branding we created, and now we renamed it for the Nordic Trailblazer, because we thought it would be fun to do something a little bit different than what everyone else seems to be doing. You know,
Hmm.
you have your own nickname, the Graveloholic. I love
Hmm.
that. A lot of riders, they use their own name, which is totally fine. But it's hard to separate yourself from everyone else. And if you're not winning races, you're just one of the many. So
Mm.
we thought, okay, we have to do something a little bit unique. So the trailblazer is somebody who goes new ways, who tries to look up new trails or new places to go. And gravel is a new path in cycling. It's definitely growing, and it's been pretty big already in the US and growing in Europe. In Norway and the Nordics is still something that is under development, and I think it will keep growing. So I think it's the right path for me. You know, I've been always loving to experience and go new places, which gravel also leads me to a lot of new roads where you wouldn't be able to go on a road bike, which was what I started with. Um, and yeah, it also fits me as, I mean, the gravel fits me also because it's a long distance sport usually. I mean, a lot of gravel races now, the UCI calendar, they have really pretty short races, like 3 hours maybe, you know. In the US, and what gravel how it was created, it was often a long distance event, a
Hmm.
long day where you didn't know if you would manage to finish or how it would be to finish that race. Um, so I like that part of the adventure part of gravel.
Got you. But now, when you speak about that as well, like w- one of the things that pretty much stands out as well when you look at your race calendar and what you've done the last couple of 2 years now, 2022 and 2023 primarily. You spend a lot of time in the US, right? So I mean, I think I don't know all the riders that sort of crosses the pond over to to America to attend those races there, but I would guess at least is that you are probably one of the few from the Nordics that has actually spent that much time in that gravel peloton over there, in comparison to. I mean, there are a few others like the Dutch Mafia, right, with the Lawrence Ten Dam and all his crew. They travel quite frequently over as well. But from Europe, you are one of the few. Well, how do you? What's the reasoning? How do you feel about that? And what sort of have you integrated yourself into that clique now with all those cool guys over there?
Actually, to be honest, I when I went to China, and I've been to Africa for racing, and Russia, and a lot of crazy places. I never saw myself as somebody who would like to go to the US because I thought it was, you know, too mainstream. But then actually, I did a charity event in Cambodia and Vietnam with Hope for Justice, and one of these guys also riding that charity event. He invited me to come to Dallas. This was 2019, so I thought, okay, let's try it, go on a training camp or racing with a local team. And I just fell in love with America. I don't know. It's just the positivism. Like people are so optimistic, at least on the surface. But it like it's just it inspires me that people are, you know, not afraid of innovation or trying new things.
Mm,
Um, and when you go to all these gravel races, you see so many people that are, you know, they would struggle just being in a regular spinning class, you know, in the training in the local gym, but they are still going out for a 200-mile unbound, you know. So people are just, you know, they're just taking the risk, which I think is very fun in sport, at least, that people are not
mm,
afraid uh, of of failure. Yeah, so after I was there in 2019, I realized this is something I want to do more of. I met a lot of good people. I have a team and at least a cycling club there, and a shop that supports me. So if it wasn't for sorry, it was if it wasn't for COVID, I would have been there also in 2020. But because of COVID,
Mm,
it wasn't easy to get access to America. So it was a couple
true.
of years I didn't go. And then when I had a chance last year, I mean 2022, I I went for 6 weeks. Had a lot of good racing. Really enjoyed it. Went back in October for a couple more races, and then last year it was another. I think I went over 4 times. Stayed 2 to 3 weeks. So definitely got a little bit involved in the community and the racing there, and I love it. It's super fun. It's really inclusive. It's not necessarily like I've been racing on the road for so many years, and it's very competitive and it's fun, but it's something else with the gravel spirit, if you can say that it's still alive, that people are very inclusive. It's your own adventure, and in the US I feel like that spirit is still alive, and it is in Europe as well. In the Gravel Earth series, it's a great inclusive spirit with riders of all levels. There are some races that are more going towards road racing in gravel. So so there's different paths in gravel, but in the US, I just feel like it's a good mix of elite and pro
Yeah.
riders, and
I,
also very inclusive
if
riders.
I remember correctly, you said that you're so integrated that you actually have your own bike still standing in the US, right? You don't travel with your bike back and forth. You have one standing or do I remember it incorrectly, or was it? Yeah,
Yeah, last year I had one bike there. The
yeah,
bike shop, they took care of everything. So I could
that's
travel
awesome.
in to the US a couple days before the race, just pick up my bike and go to the race. And I even
That's
had
perfect.
friends or I could lend a car from that shop. So I was really blessed and lucky to have the support there. So it's going to
And
be interesting to see how it develops, because it's hard to race in two different continents and keep all those
yeah.
relationships and sponsors and what you need. Mm.
But I gotta ask you, you race with a felt bike, and it seems like they are really stepping up their game when it comes to gravel, right? I mean, you and the iconic, almost legend Nicky Terpstra was the sort of the main names last year on their roster. First, I need to ask you, like, how does it feel sort of to be riding next to Nicky? He was also in Halmstad, by the way, and he performed really well. He even won the race, right? So uh, but that's one thing that I wanted to ask you. And then second thing, now they're ramping up even more, right? With Dylan Johnson, Adam Roberge, and so forth. So it seems like they're really trying to up their game when it comes to gravel as well, to take a part of that pie.
Oh yeah, definitely. They want to be part of the big wave that is going through the cycling sport of cycling. And yeah, it's fun to be. I guess I started before a lot of these ex pro riders. I started racing on the gravel a couple of years back, and in 2022 it was not that many riders that had like a world tour background. You had some in the US, of course, Lawrence and Dam and Peter Stedina and a few others. But now it seems like a lot of these people they're not ending their career on the road. They just shift towards gravel. The last one I saw now was Greg van Avermaet. He was going to do the Unbound and Finland Gravel. So two races I'm also doing. So it's fun to have those really high level riders next to you when you race. It's
Mm.
special, but they are human as well. And I never made it to that level they are on, but I can still be competitive. And if I have a great day, no punches, no issues, I can be up there. So it's inspiring, I would say. I remember in Seattle and Nicky Terpstra, he was there, and it's just fun to see. It's hard actually to kind of figure that, or to see it for in front of you, or what I mean. It's hard to understand their background really, because I didn't race the Paris Roubaix, so it's hard for me to kind of understand what Nicky has done, So,
Yeah.
but it's just inspiring to have those riders in the peloton as well.
That's that's super cool. What a little bit on your sort of riding style or tactics. I mean, it's really really hard to interpretate or to follow gravel races, right? It's difficult, and some they try to do it in the US, and I mean the only race that we saw now last year from was the UCI World Championship basically, and you basically only saw the last hour, and it was not that much fun to follow because it was more or less already settled what was going to happen. But you have I understood it from reading your posts and stuff, like you kind of ride aggressively, right? You try to get in the breakaway sometimes. You try to sort of stay in the front quite a lot. What's your thinking there? What's your strategy?
Maybe I need a tactical coach. I don't know. No, I don't know. Uh, I when line up, I just get super excited. But I have the experience as well. I know I can't go full out from the gun, but I can be tactical and trying to follow the right people and be in the right position. And sometimes I feel like being up front in a small break or whatever is a good place to be because, as you mentioned, some of the really amazing riders like Nicky Terpstra and other ex pros riders, when they are really pushing it in the climbs, it's very hard to follow. So if you can be a little bit up
Mm,
the road, it may be a good position to be when they catch you. And in Halmstad, I remember that really well. I was in a four-man breakaway, felt pretty good. Eventually, with 30 kilometers to go, we got caught by the first eight riders, really strong riders, and that was on top of the really challenging loose gravel part of the course.
I know
And
which you mean.
yeah, it was. I guess there was many people who had to run that climb because it was really loose.
Yeah,
But I made it to the
I did.
top before I got caught. If it wasn't because of my chain drop in the downhill, I think I would stay with that group for at least a long time, and it would be a perfect position for a potential top 10 at least. If I got dropped there, I would still have a good chance for the group behind. So I think it's nice to be aggressive, and gravel is different than road because on the road it's always good to hide in the peloton to save energy, and usually you will always save if you're in a peloton. On the road, you will always
Mm,
save energy.
yeah,
But on the gravel, like there's so many things that can go wrong, and you don't have the same drafting. So I think actually being upfront is often a good tactic. But you have to, you have to consider spending that energy. And some of these races are so long, so if you go out way too hard, you're gonna blow up eventually because you use all your energy storage. So
yeah,
it's a risk. Sometimes I like to take that risk and hopefully be in a better position for the end. So,
yeah.
but I do like
I
to race aggressive, and as a gravel Viking, I guess I have to.
exactly, exactly. So I mean, my point of view, I'm not strong enough to be in the front, but to be on someone's wheel on a gravel road, I mean, and you can't really see ahead of you. It's not as doing the same thing on a tarmac, sort of smooth paved road, because you yeah, it's really really difficult with potholes, with stones, with rocks, with whatever roots there might be that you might have to sort of go 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 over just having being on someone's wheel, and it's kind of scary to be honest in comparison to doing it on the road. I mean, you see that there's a lot of crashes as well in the peloton on the roads. There's no doubt about that, but
Yeah.
it's a different game. It's a different game for sure. I need to ask you one thing about your bike. It was so obvious as well about from the last picture that you posted, that was sort of dead center front view. And now you guys that listening to the podcast won't be able to see this, but basically Jonas has hoods, and he has quite you have a quite radical flare on your bars, and then the hoods as well is quite turned in. I wouldn't. Uh, yeah. So okay, UCI legal or what's your?
Well, that's the thing with. I mean, I like that the UCI is also going into gravel, but it means that there will be a lot of more regulations, which probably is fine
Hmm,
for the long run because if it's no regulations, there might be a lot of stuff going on eventually when gravel is growing. But before last year or before this year, sorry, it was allowed to have the ends in. So just kept it like that. And now for the last race, there was Gravel Earth Series, and they are not so strict about regulations, so I kept it. But it's good when you want to be aero, and on the gravel, you don't not going as fast as on the road, but you will still benefit if you can save wind resistant and be aero. That's why I wanted to have them that far in, so I could kind of uh, lean against them when I almost in
Yeah,
a time trial
I have mine
position. But
tilted in as well, to be honest.
yeah, but I do realize for the UCR races I need to adjust them back a little bit straighter
Yeah,
again.
got you. Um, one thing that I'm curious to talk to you about is this. I mean, you need to tell me what it is. Like, really, the non-profit Green Cycling Norway. What is that, and how are you engaged in that, and what does it mean to you?
So in 2015, a friend of mine and I we realized there are no green initiatives in cycling, and we wanted to make an elite cycling team. So we thought that was a good way to combine things that we value, as sustainability, and also trying to get partners and sponsors involved. It was harder than we thought at the beginning. That this was like, yeah, as I said, 2016. It was a little bit before. Like now, every company has a green approach in some way. At least that's what they say on their website. So I mean, now it's more important for them to be having that statement that they want to support green initiatives. Uh, but we realized that what we could do, maybe we wouldn't manage to make a full cycling team, but we could organize cycling schools for kids. And we got governmental support, applying grants and different to have those kinds of cycling schools. And it became kind of my work. I'm educated coach, cycling coach, so I also coach athletes or riders. But I started doing this cycling school projects, and we last year we had about 35 days of cycling schools in different schools for more than 1,000 kids, and it's great. I mean, it's nice to help the kids experience the joy of cycling that I always found, but also being able to help some of the kids to learn to ride, because we see that even in Norway, one of the richest country in the world, there are kids without bikes. They don't know how to ride, and it's not inclusive. You know, you want cycling to be inclusive, not only in the sport but also in the community and the society. um, and if some kids are not able to learn to how to ride a bike because they don't have a bike, or their parents they can't help them to learn it, then it's not inclusive anymore. So that's what we are doing a lot of with green cycling. We have those cycling schools, going to different schools, having trainings and exercises with bikes, and they love it, and it's fun for us.
That's super, super cool. That's amazing. Imagine in 5, 10 years, there's a girl or a boy that wins Paris-Roubaix or Tour de France, and then they say, how did you get into cycling? And they refer to you as their sort of starting point. How would you feel about that?
Oh yeah, yeah. I haven't thought about it in that long run. I think there is an impact to what we're doing, but it's hard to see the long term effect of it. But that would be really awesome if we could have those stories.
That's super, super cool. Wow. So that's you spend a lot of time then actually doing working with this nonprofit, as I understood it.
Yeah, I consider me a professional cyclist, but it depends, of course, where you put that name. Like professional, what is professional rider? And in gravel, seems like a lot of people that call themselves professionals, they have some kind of side projects. And for me, it makes totally sense to have coaching and having cycling schools next to that. I'm serious about my training and trying to have a good racing calendar and perform in those races. I think it's just a overall picture that makes sense, and what I may, yeah, I just love being involved in all aspect of cycling. So hopefully I can keep doing that, even though I'm 33, so I realized I cannot always go to the US 4 or 5 times a year, or train uh, as good as possible to race in the elite world championship. But yeah, I can still be involved in cycling, and do a lot of good stuff, and also enjoy those races, and just being part of the community. So I look forward to the future, even though I understand being, like a nomad, traveling all around the world racing. It's a lifestyle that I can't see myself doing for the rest of my life. But definitely, I think cycling is giving me so many opportunities, and I look forward to see what's next.
That's super cool. What? Maybe I shouldn't ask this question, but I will do it anyways. So how's it going? Are you trying to influence your now wife to start cycling as well?
I don't think she will listen to this podcast. She's not that into cycling at the moment, so I can be honest her. Yeah, I hope she will. She likes cross country skiing. She bought an e-bike last year. I do think now eventually she will like to go out riding with me. So actually, we're talking about going to Denmark in April to do one of the gravel races there.
Hmm.
Um, and my argument for her is that we can go out riding together as well, going to a bakery, just enjoying that Sunday, and then I can race on that Saturday. It's a good week, good weekend. So yeah, I think I tried to get her involved, but little by little.
That's great. In my case, it was actually the other way around. It was my wife that was a cyclist, and she kind of influenced me in a very indirect way. She never tried to push it on me to start cycling. I was like, this is actually interesting. I need a new way to sort of exercise, and yeah, maybe I should look into cycling. So that's how I started. So
Yeah,
speaking about races in 2024, what's your schedule now? I saw you put some of them on Instagram, but walk me through it. What's your plan now?
Yeah, so the Sun Wall was more of a, I don't know, a fun training weekend. I mean, it was proper racing there, but it was not part of my racing calendar per se when it comes to being in form. I hope to be able to get in some good races before Traka, which is my main goal of the spring, before Unbound, um, which I'm also registered for. I will do the Gravelocos. It's May 18th. So the May will be probably pretty busy, and then I have Finland Gravel in Lahti. It's a great
Hmm.
race. Some local races in Norway. The Rift is one of the biggest, I would say, especially for us coming from the Nordics.
Hmm.
So I look forward to that. I will do some UCI races, Halmstad. I think I'm going to be back in Bergslagen. I love that one up in. It's over at yours almost in Sweden.
Yeah,
So and then I
beautiful
organize a
Finland.
couple of, yeah, I do organize a few local races as well. So it's just fun
Oh,
to
okay.
have, yeah, to have some events that I'm involved with. I can share, the gravel experience to others. So yeah, that's it. Uh, and then the end of the year, I hope to be back at the World Championship, and also probably be back in the US for Big Sugar and Belgian Rough Ride in Kansas. So quite a lot of racing
That's an
in
awesome
the
schedule,
calendar.
dude. I wish I was able to do the same. That would have been such an epic schedule. I'm a little bit envious, but it's okay.
But definitely, you're welcome to the Norwegian event. I'll try to have you over. That would be
That
awesome.
would
I
be
think
cool.
you would enjoy it a
Yeah.
lot. That's September
Um,
7th, Nesfelle Gravel Duro.
Cool. Speaking about the World Championships, I need to ask you about this. I mean, obviously, white kits and white bibs is a little bit of a divider in the community. Um, and but you really rocked. the white kit with white bibs on the World Championships. What was the reactions that you got?
Yeah, in 2022, the first year they had a World Championship, I had a Euro kit. When I started racing, Euro, I don't know if you remember the Euro rules. Do you remember?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's a lot of rules how you should dress as a cyclist. And then white kit was
yeah,
always, and then Cipollini, he was the god, so doing a white kit racing in Italy makes totally sense. But it got dirty. So I had two set of kits, and one of them are still. I had some really fanatics that wanted the kit. They helped me out there with feeding and mechanical work down in Italy, and they wanted the kit just in all the dirt and all the sand and sweat that it had. So it's still on the wall at their place. So yeah, I don't know. I guess some people accept that gravel is a dirty sport. I don't need to have everything white and clean. And when you just see that it's been used, maybe it gives a little bit added value to it. But for me, I chose black shoes and black bibs, but I think it's nice to have a little bit colorful kit as well, and not going all black.
yeah. No, it was definitely easier to see where you were and to recognize you on pictures and stuff like that when you have a white kit like that. Now when we're talking about kits, I need to ask you about this. Have you seen now the latest? I watched the UAE tour yesterday, and the difference. It's really hard to differentiate in between like the Koenig, Alpecin, which is it, Israel startup. There's like three or four or even five now that they basically look all the same. What's your opinion about that?
I think uniqueness is a good thing. Um, so yeah, I would trying to difference myself and my kit from others. I think there's so many people that are in gravel. There's so many people that have been copying the cool Rafa kit. So I think it's nice with those that tries and being a little bit different and unique. So that would be
Yeah,
my take on it. Don't follow,
yeah,
be the leader.
yeah. Uh, EF is really doing a really good job there. They are definitely differentiating
Oh
themselves
yeah.
from the bunch for sure. What about? Can you give any sort of ideas, thoughts of inspiration, things to think about if you want to speak to the audience now, if they are sort of thinking about also getting into more the racing scene of gravel? What is there to consider? What is there maybe to consider as well when it comes to building partner ambassadorship and partnerships? Um, any thoughts on that that you might be able to share with us?
Yeah, it's a wide question. First of all, I would like to say if people are considering to go into gravel and be part of the events, just do it because it's a very inclusive community. Like people want you there. They want to have you. They want to have fellow riders to share their own experience with. So it's not like people in gravel are not competing about. Uh, Being the coolest or the best. They just love to share that adventure with others. So that's my first encouragement is just to be involved with it and try to be there because people want to have you there. And then also it's about let's talk about the equipment side of things. Like you don't need that specific bike. I mean, you need wider tires than what you would need on the road. Um, Probably 35s or wider. You can even ride on a mountain bike. It's not going to be that much slower. So I also want to lower that threshold of becoming a gravel rider or being part of the events. That you don't need to have the coolest or the most high end equipment. If you don't want to, try it with whatever you have, and then if you love it, and then you can of course make a wish list. So I think that's important also to acknowledge that there's not really a rule to what you need to have or use for a gravel event. And then the last thing you were talking about is sponsorship and ambassadorship, and I think it's different in all parts of the world, and who you talk to. I think what's unique with gravel is the inclusiveness, that you also not only you can be a role model, but you can also be very connected to other riders that are on different levels. So, for example, in gravel a series now in Sanaval that I did, after the race, you had everyone, all riders from the top level riders that were last year racing World Tour races to first timers coming together for the bike, the venue, eating pizzas and drinking beers if you like that, or just enjoying that, that experience of being part of the community, and everyone are welcome to talk to everyone, and it's very inclusive and very nice to be part of. And I think that's unique with gravel, that you are getting connected with others, and that should be interesting for brands who wants to be connected with everyone, that they actually support people that are in the community and are connected with potential buyers. So it's different than soccer, where you have people running on the court and or on the pitch, and you never talk to them. In cycling, you actually are involved and can talk to them and get ideas
Yeah,
and tips. So I like that part of cycling, and I think brands should also
yeah.
really take advantage of that.
How do you feel? Do you have people that come to you like, and oh, you're the Nordic trail racer, like I want to take a picture with you, or how are you doing, Jonas? Or blah, blah. So what's that like for you when you go to events?
Yeah, I mean there are people that are following me and heard about me, and I appreciate them coming over to me. I'm not the biggest rider usually in those races. When you have, as you said, Nicky Terpstra, or you have Greg van Avermaet, there, and or Dylan Johnson. I really like Dylan. He's a great guy, and he's definitely a famous guy in the gravel sport. So there are often people that are more popular and known than I am, which is fine. Then it gives me a chance to connect with others and have more time to those actually coming over to talk to me. So I really enjoy people connecting, like you did, Marcus, in Halmstad, coming over, taking a photo, talking a little bit. Just great fun. So if people are doing the same events as I am, then please come over.
Cool. I want to ask you as well, because now Sandoval, connecting back to what you started talking about today as well, the event that you just did this weekend, it was a three-stage race, right? It was climbing thingy, groups, groups mass start, right? Friday, then Queen stage Saturday, and then a shorter punchy stage on Sunday, right? As I understood it.
Yeah,
But
it's
there
close. I
aren't
would,
too
I
many.
would
There aren't too many gravel stage races. Gravel Grit and Grind in Hamsta is one of the few, and this now is maybe the second one that I potentially even hear about. So there's not too many. What's your point on? What do you feel about gravel stage racing?
Yeah, there are, I guess, a few. There are both pros and cons to those. The pros are definitely, and that was the reason I also went to Sanaval, that you can have more days of racing when you travel, and often if you go to gravel races, it's a long travel. There's not that many races, so you better like traveling if you want to have a calendar. Uh, so therefore it makes sense to have several stages. The other thing that is a little bit difficult with those stages is that in gravel often you have technical problems, like you have punctures, you may have um, chain that what is called are splitted or destroyed or whatever. Like the bike
Hmm.
wear is high on gravel, so it's not
Yeah,
always you want to have several stages where you have all that stress of putting your bike together and finding out everything. So it's if you have a mechanic or the event have some kind of support, mechanical support, then it can be real fun to have several days back to back. But it's hard though. It's very hard because especially if you have longer stage races. I mean, Halmstad is not that long, usually 120 kilometers. A good day of riding, but not that long. And in Sandoval, it was even shorter.
Yeah.
So that then it's possible. But if you have longer races, like Unbound is extreme on 200 miles, so 320 kilometers, or other events, like are close to 200, it's you're gonna be pretty wasted after one day. And if you're not Mattia De Marchi or some crazy endurance guy, you're gonna really suffer for the next stages. And so sometimes it's good to have just one big day and enjoy those memories and take care of those stories, instead of try again the next day and just suffer and remember the whole thing as a devastating weekend.
Yeah. Even Mattia Marchi is actually a human being. It seems he actually had to abandon the Atlas mountain race now, as I understood it, because his knees was hurting. So even he is human.
Yeah, but then he came to Sandoval and was up at one of the best riders there, so just a few days after. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
crazy,
Human with
crazy.
superpowers.
Yeah, this has been so nice, Jonas. I really enjoyed this. I'm astonished by how humble you are, and such a great personality. It's been a really enjoyable conversation, and I really hope that I get to see you soon again. I'll take you up on that offer to come join you in on one of those events. But hey, good luck with all the racing this year, and continue that awesome work that you're doing with your nonprofit Green Cycling Norway. And thank you very much for coming to the show.
Thank you, Marcus. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Jonas. That was amazing. I really enjoy what you do for the community there in Norway, how you're trying to help people to get on bikes and even be the source of inspiration for people in the future. So I really hope that that will really be fruitful for you. And I'm looking forward to see the results that you will do now during this year. All those amazing races. As I said, I am definitely envious of you being able to travel and do all those. The community, the people that you get to meet, the races that you get to experience, amazing. So enjoy it. I hope you liked this episode. If you did, please leave me a review, a comment, a like, subscribe. And if you do so, you will be able to get even more content like this. And I have some pretty nice interviews lined up. So bear with me and see you all next week. Until then, have a nice day. Bye bye.